Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rough Draft. I am here with Andrew Swearingen, a fellow Blood of Kings Legends writer. Fun fact, this is actually our second attempt at this conversation. Last time we tried, the internet was just so abysmal that we had to give up, which was really sad. But thank you for being here again, Andrew.
Yeah. No, I'm happy. I was happy to reschedule. I know you were technical issues are the worst, but I'm choosing to think of this in the positive, because for one, it is much cooler today than it was last time. And my office is it's at like the end of the HVAC route in my house. So, and it's upstairs. So like if it's hot outside, like it gets kind of unpleasant in here after a while. And another reason why it's exciting is because in the week that has passed since we talked, we have learned that both of our books are Realm Award semifinalists, which is a fun thing that we'll get to talk about, uh, in a little bit here. But yeah, here's to second chances.
Here's to second chances. I love it. Oh my goodness, what a great segue. Thank you. Yes. So today, when I asked Andrew, not today, last week, when I asked Andrew what topics were kind of on his heart that he wanted to chat about, one of them that he mentioned was this whole idea of collaborative writing. So I'm going to bring it over here now, Andrew, because I'm talking to you now. I loved that you brought that up because that is something that just comes up all the time. Whenever we're presenting our books to people, there's always so much confusion, I've found anyway, over like, why are there two names on the book? What does this mean? Who wrote it? Like, and so it does require a little bit of explanation because I think the idea of like being part of a team for a series is to some people a little bit foreign and novel. So like I have my little script that I use to kind of explain that to people, but they're probably tired of hearing it from me at this point. So I was wondering if you could kind of launch us, like when you're kind of explaining what goes into the Legends books, the process, that team collaborative aspect, how do you go about introducing people to that?
Yeah. Well, the simplest way that I was able to explain, I actually had a book event 2 3 weeks ago where it was a homeschool conference and I was there with the Realm Makers bookstore, and I was getting got a chance to like work alongside with them, but then also like specifically sell our series there to people who were there to buy books. And the simplest way I found to unpack it was that they were standalone stories but a shared story world. Like obviously you and I who have lived and breathed this whole process for the last 3 years, that's an oversimplification. But when you're trying to explain it, succinctly to somebody, you kind of have to like skip over some of the bits there because, obviously like this all started with Jill's trilogy and then it's working alongside with her, but to like, work these stories up and make sure they fit into her world. But then also working alongside with each other because like I feel like especially with the first round of books, it was like, oh, everybody in these stories is related. Like just everybody's cousins. Which works well. It's only really found if you're in like noble court settings or I don't know, Alabama. I don't know. I basically gave some version of like, we were all working off of this one story world together. And people kind of enjoy hearing that. It's neat to them to see like, oh, okay, so like, you know, so like you're working together and working as a team as opposed to an individual writer sort of thing. And then there's benefits with that where, for Jill to have written four new Blood of Kings books to come out in 2020, was that last year? Was that 26? I'm No, this is 26. My gosh. Don't get older, Nikki. Your brain betrays you quickly. But for four new books to come out in a year, it that just wouldn't have been feasible or the quality would have dropped off. Whereas like here, it's like we can put out these, this cool series and have it shared and worked on together. So like I said, that is kind of where I land on with trying to pitch it to people is saying like each of these stories is standalone, but it's just shared story world. And you could pick up one of the books on its own and get the full story. But if you read several of them, then you start to see the rich tapestry of this world that's coming together.
I think that's important to clarify, um, because yes, there was a collaborative aspect. We had to coordinate a lot of things, like you said, with characters being related. That was a thing. Often with characters, like their trauma is related to family, so there were things that we would have to like run by each other. Like in Heir of Light, Rigel has some burdens that he's carrying from his family, but you're writing about his sister, so like I had to make sure that I'm not stepping on your toes, and so that was really fun, and plus I feel like there were some very interesting threads that were weaving all the way through that people would really enjoy if they read them all. But there's still that sense that like you don't need to feel like you're stepping into something huge. Like you can pick up one book and enjoy it from start to finish and have like a cohesive unit with which I think is important to people because sometimes it can feel overwhelming when it's like, whoa, there's like 4 books coming out all in one year. Like, what do I need to know? Do I need to read every single one of them to understand? So that is something that I found I have to kind of like explain to people. But we also had the really fun like plot storming. Like when we first got this opportunity to write together, how old was I? 21 or something, I think. I had never gone anywhere by myself. And I find myself flying to Florida, which for me is like a trip. I'm in Canada to like meet this team of people that is going to write the Legends collection and I get to be part of. And it was like kind of scary, honestly. I didn't know what to expect. But you were actually the first person I met from the team in the airport. And I knew after like 30 seconds of chatting, it was like, okay, we're good. It's going to be fine. This is going to be a fun group of people. But I had inhibitions about this idea of like plotting together because I had only ever written stories that were very private and like close to my chest and no one else knows my stuff. And so you have all that kind of privacy and creative control in space. So it was a little scary, this idea of like, oh, now I have to present my ideas and like get feedback on the spot. So I was nervous about that. How did you feel? I'm curious. Did you have any inhibitions?
They're certainly there. I will say for me, and this is ironic because as we sit here recording, I'm literally waiting for feedback on my most recent round of edits on the current s- series season. I forget how we're referring to it broadly, but the next round of books for Blood of Kings. And as many times as I've done this and as much good feedback as I've gotten from Jill and from Susie and from anyone who has edited something I've written, like it always improves the book. It always points at things that it's like either I knew but I didn't know how to deal with it, or something I wasn't aware of and something that can be massaged, and it only ever clarifies and makes the story better. Even knowing all that, I'm a total wimp. Like I'm the person who like especially like on a first draft, I'm like, man, I know this sucker's rough, and it's like sometimes I have to wait like a day before opening the email, and then I like read a couple pages and then I have to like step away or something like that. And I want to clarify, Jill especially is such a naturally built teacher. Like she has such good skills at finding the things that need work done, um, and then being able to then help coach and work things forward with that. And anytime I talk with Jill, like in a context like this, like a video chat, I always feel kind of built up by that. When it's just text on a page, my brain kind of auto populates, or not auto populates, but when I'm reading just text, I hear it in a harsher tone than I'm sure Jill means it as. And again, this is an Andrew thing. This is not a Jill thing. This is me knowing like I will take criticism harder than I ought to, and I have to get over that hump. And I will have to get over that hump with this next round of stuff that I'm getting. Oftentimes it doesn't even matter. Like if I have a quick turnaround, it's like, I kind of have to force myself to like jump into it there. As far as the like actual like creating process, that was easier for me because I felt a little bit more open-ended on that. Like I had my story idea, but I was also like, I'm recognizing that this is Jill's story world. And so she has the right to say, hey, that's not how this magic system works. So that doesn't feel right with this character. Similarly, with working along with both Susie and Jill, both of them are such good story crafters that they know what is going to work and they know the pitfalls before I do. For me, that part was easier. I will say that the like that specific moment of the insecurity honestly was usually like before sending. It's when I'm sending in a draft that I'm like, I just wish it could be ready. I think that's the hard part, is like if we were just writing these books on our own, we would have that immediate, like, okay, now I'm going to start revising. And here it's like it was, send in your first draft, warts and all. And that's kind of a quirk of the process of this, where you are working on the manuscript and sending it in while it's still in process. And usually, us as writers, we have those insecurities that we want to try to cover up before someone else sees it. And there was no fixing that. Um, I suppose there was a similar dynamic to that with our writer retreat in Florida, except there it was such a fun atmosphere where we could kind of feed off of the energy in the room, because we had Susie and Jill and you and Kelly, and Lisa Phillips was also there. It was such a nurturing atmosphere for creativity, where it was kind of a like best idea wins sort of thing, where, as we were throwing a lot of ideas out there and working it up together, and every choice that was made felt like it improved the story. And so, like, the few reservations I had about things, it's like, I mean, one, I like I said, anything that felt like it was improving the story, I was game for. And if there was doubt, I was in a spot where I was prepared to give people the benefit of the doubt. And then if there were questions, we would, especially in the room there, because we were just coming up with an outline, very broad strokes. And then if there were questions that needed to go further, we would resolve that as the book was being written.
Yeah, that I would like to say one thing that just I will always, always remember is how impressed I was by Susie and Jill in the room because they're just brilliant. But also, you were so quick with ideas, it blew my mind. So in that room, we had how many of us? Five,
I
six?
think it was five of us for the most part. And then Lisa was kind of in and out because she was doing sort of like prep stuff for meals and all of that. But because I literally remember her
Hero.
like, oh, yeah, like she like was in the kitchen doing something, and we were out on kind of a sunroom area, and she burst through the door because she was overhearing what we were saying and was like, wait, no, you have to do this. She's like waving a spoon around, just like could not contain the creative burst that she was having there. So she was very much a part of it, even when she wasn't in the room with us, she was in the room with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that was so fun. There was just so much creative energy there. I did find just for the sake of anyone out there who might be more like me and less like Andrew, I did find that very hard because I am not a fast processor. I'm not fast with ideas. And so I struggled a little bit in that I didn't feel like I could keep up. I didn't feel like I could contribute much. I was just listening and being fascinated by these like lightning creatives that could just pump out ideas. I thought that was so cool. But I do think that it was so valuable in that, like you said, all the ideas just made the story better. And you come in with this very rough, humble, like, this is what I have in mind, but there are holes. I don't know exactly where it's going. And just the way that the team came together to help fill in those gaps was awesome. And sometimes you do have to walk away and kind of sit with something and take it in trust for a second. I know for me, the birds was that thing for me. Like, I came away with this like bird idea that was not my idea, and I was kind of like, I don't know about this, like birds, using birds. But then for anyone who's read Air of Light, you will know that that's actually a pretty like significant motif in the story that became one of my favorite little pieces that was so much fun. And so it's like it's a little testimony for me to lean on, where it's like two heads or six heads are better than one. And often it's the most surprising ideas that can really unlock things. So always be open-minded in like a team collaborating setting because it's just so fun, so exciting. So you were talking about your process and the editing aspect. Like, do you feel like you have approached the second season differently than the first season? Like, do you feel like you're a little more resilient the second time around than the first time?
More resilient, yes. Um, because there is an understanding of, like, okay, these are going to be there's a better understanding of what the process is going to look like. Now, do I still sit there? Does my heart still jump when I see that I've gotten an email with my feedback back? Like, absolutely. Like, this morning, I had several emails come in that were, most of them were junk, but it's like I know I'm getting the email with my feedback. And I want to make it so abundantly clear. This is not because Jill Williamson is mean. She is one of the most kind-hearted people I've ever met in my life. I want to make that abundantly clear that it's not like I'm afraid that Jill's going to bite my head off. It's just the fact that there will be red marks on a thing that I wrote that say, in my brain, it is saying this is wrong. Now, what Jill is saying is this needs work. Let's work on that together. We're going, we are very much, partnered in all this, but my insecurities are less so, but they still remain. I think knowing more about what each editing pass was going to be helps with that. Like with Lord of Winter, the first draft of Lord of Winter is very different than what the end product was. I think that first draft came in at like 100,000 words or so, and it's like I gotta chop 20,000 words out of this manuscript, and it felt like I literally said it was like using a bulldozer, like just going in and like, okay, we need to eliminate this chat, we need to eliminate this chapter, these two need to be broken in half and then combined because we need to like, we need to be more economic with these things here, and then the end product when I submitted that feedback was better, but yes, there were still some chapters held together by duct tape. And then slowly you get more refined to the point where you are no longer using a bulldozer or a chainsaw to do these things, but you are using a scalpel. You're kind of fine tuning the little details that really put the story over the top. Now, there's other reasons why this book, Shield of Honor, was very different than writing Lord of Winter, because Lord of Winter, like the kind of the through line stayed the same, like from the moment I proposed it originally, pretty much all through the end. Like there were some significant changes in like the plot mechanics of how you got from A to B, but the overall story, this mix of revenge story and a little bit of an arranged marriage tale, that was all very much the same. Shield of Honor, it was like it came together in large pieces at a time because I knew I wanted to write a story about Lord Eric's squire Derby, and then there's the cousin who is, Lord Eric's younger cousin, who's kind of a hellion. And it's like, okay, let's put this very straight arrow guy with this wild card Lathia, and let's see what story they tell. And we went through like 3 or 4 different versions of what their story could be before we landed on where it is now, with having, it was like, well, we need to tell a story in Land's End. What if they go there? And then it's like, okay, so what's their story going to be? And maybe it's going to be this, maybe it's going to be that. And if you want to find that out, you'll just have to wait till next year when the book comes out, because we quickly get into spoiler territory with that. But yes, very different processes all across the board. I would say I felt better about it this time around just because I had been through it before. That doesn't mean it was easy. It just meant like, okay, I know that we are in the bulldozer section here. I know that we are in the shovel section here. And, very quickly we'll be coming up to the scalpel bit and, you know, tucking, tucking in all the things.
That's very helpful, and I think it's important to understand the process so that you can be mentally prepared for it. I think I like what you mentioned earlier about submitting our manuscripts kind of warts and all, and how that's very much just a built-in part of the process, because I think for Heir of Light, I was still operating with that like, "Oh, I'll spend this time making it as perfect as possible so that I get as little feedback as possible." And just try and like mitigate the damage that way. But it's like that's not how it works. I'm a new writer. Like there are going to be so many things that need to be addressed. And thankfully, like I was pleasantly surprised by how uncrushed I was by my feedback. And there was a lot of it, to be clear. There was a lot of feedback. But just I think by that time I was like excited and ready to have someone tell me, what am I missing here? Like I've been sitting with this for so long, I've been tinkering with it for so long, I can't tell anymore what's wrong with it. And so there was like a little bit of excitement to like have someone tell me, okay, it's this part that we need to fix, or it's this part. But I found with the second round that I didn't feel that same pressure for the first submission to like make it perfect, because now you have this recognition that like this is actually part of the process. Like this is what this team is here to help you do, is to get it to that next level. So don't worry about perfection the first time, because you won't you will not achieve it the first time, and that's something we all just kinda have to, like, wrestle with and come to terms with, but once you do, then there can be more of that actual excitement even in the, like, the grind of submitting for feedback and kind of the angst of getting feedback. There's also this excitement of, like, these people know story, and they know what I'm trying to accomplish, and they're gonna help me take it to the next level, which is awesome.
No, that's something that I think Jill has been really good at with this is like she's not trying to hijack anything. Like the feedback is one of how can we make the story that you, Nikki, are telling, how can we make that work better? How can we like bring forth what's there? I've been listening to a podcast recently that talks about um it talks about movies and movies that like maybe didn't succeed well, and it talks about one particular movie where like they got a star lined up, but all of a sudden the movie star, he wanted to make it into like his kind of movie, and he kind of hijacked the film a little bit, and it ended up being more like, well, I want to do, a scene where a plane crashes and it's like a decompression sequence. There was no space for that in the movie whatsoever, but he wanted to do that, and so they had to figure out a space to make it work in there. And I say all that as an example of what that kind of collaboration looks like done maybe poorly. But in our case, it's like, no, it's not like, well, what if you just did this? That's like completely backwards of the story we're trying to tell. It's the saying, here is your, here are your characters, here are your themes, here's your, their journey that they're going on. How can we make that work as best as possible? I really feel that like we've done that both with my own book, but then also getting to read your and Kelly's books also.
I think that shared vision and shared value is, like, key for a team. I just did a podcast recently with Andrew Levecki, who was talking about his process, independent publishing, and one of the points he made was that he was saying, "We call it self-publishing, but really you should have a team behind you." But not just anyone can fit in, because if they don't understand what it is that you're trying to do, or if they just bring their own ideas to your story and go, "Actually, I think you should do this," because they're not seeing the heart of the story that you're trying to tell, then that's not gonna be a valuable kind of feedback loop to have in your circle. And I think that we were so blessed and are so blessed in this team because you come in right from the top with this shared goal, this shared kind of value. We're all trying to accomplish the same thing. We can all kind of communicate and see the heart of each person's story and help that person get there. And so not everybody will necessarily have this exact situation that we have, but when you're approaching writing and approaching kind of building your team as a writer, whether it's a team of editors or what do you call it, like a critique group or whatever, like it is important to have that kind of shared value in place because otherwise you have to do a little more sifting, sorting of feedback.
I was going to say like on, with our side, it's like we're absolutely blessed that we were able to work well as a unit, like really from the get-go. Like I had your same experience with getting to meet everybody. And I've known Jill for, 10 years before we started writing together. So I knew to expect good things working with her. But obviously, I didn't know you or Kelly, and I never worked with Susie in any real capacity. And how quickly we became a unit in that room, where I had very much that same experience meeting you in the airport, where it's like, oh yeah, this is Nikki, my sister, who I've just now met. But it's like, no, like I'm automatically like I'm on board with this person, and very much the same meeting Kelly, where it's like, y'all kind of, my form the spaces of my big and little sisters in this equation. And I don't say that flippantly. I feel like sometimes, and especially in some, how to say this carefully, in some faith-based circles, terms like that can be thrown around loosely and perhaps in a way that's not entirely earned. But that was genuinely my feeling upon meeting the both of you and getting to work with us as a unit was like, no, we're in this. And part of that is when you meet someone who, you have faith in common and you have writing in common, and and specifically writing speculative, something fantasy, there is something of like some of the walls are dropped. Like you already know, you can already presume several things about this person, and it's like, okay, let's. I think we're all. I already think we're going to get along, but it's still, even then, it was fun to get to experience that. And even within those just couple days, it's like, yeah, this is a really cool unit that we get to work together with. And I think that's part of why that writer's room kind of feeling worked well, at least on my end, because I felt comfortable to take other people's suggestions for Lord of Winter for things that I didn't understand how they were going to work. And, I wanted to make sure that I didn't, there's that balance of, I don't want to just take up the room when it's someone else's turn to work on their book. But when I have an idea that I genuinely feel could improve the book, I want to share it and try to help with that. Whatever I can do, even if it's just suggesting an idea that gets rejected, whatever I can do to make their book better, I want to do that. I want to share some of that generosity.
I appreciated that. I did not feel like you were taking up the room at all. Yeah, I needed those ideas for sure. And I know that that was we were all experiencing that when in real time you are stuck. You've got the marker in your hand and you're like, I don't know how to fill this box. I genuinely don't have a plan for this part. And then the relief of having voices in the room go, what about this? Like it's just yeah, it was a beautiful thing and a real blessing. And yeah, and I felt the same way. Just family right away, which is really cool. And not everybody has that, but I think that when God is in a project in a process and when we're trusting God to kind of bring the right people into our lives, even if you're just a writer starting out and trying to find your team, like the Lord is so gracious and he knows the people we need to have kind of in our circle. And he will help you. He will guide you there. So go to him with that. As we approach time for this first segment, I just wanted to ask whatever plans you have for your future, what do you think is the biggest thing that you will be taking from your time on the Legends team forward with you into your future projects?
It sounds so silly. Um, Probably the biggest thing. Okay, so the thing you saw the smile on my face immediately. The thing probably is the biggest takeaway is learning how to write a romance, because when I submitted this story, um, like I thought of it as like I read Blood of Kings the first time and was like, cool, fun fantasy adventure sort of thing. And then it wasn't until later on that I think it may have been when we started writing these books together that someone was like, oh yeah, there's a fun love story there. Like, I guess there is a love story in there. And that is just not how my brain processes things at all. And the hilarity of Jill having to walk me through like step by step of here's I mean, it wasn't as plain as here's how you write a romance story, but it's like, don't forget to talk about the fact that they actually like each other. Like, Andrew's brain is like, I want to talk about the revenge story with Lord Eric and his cousin who's broken out of prison. I want to focus on that bit. And, and then they come together as a team, and it's like, no, you need to push into the love story a little bit. You are writing in some part a kissing book here, Andrew. And both Jill and Susie's feedback was helpful for explaining to the guy how this stuff is supposed to work. Any scene that involves sword fighting, like almost no notes. Like so it's just like Andrew's got this part, but like the gushy bits, the heartfelt bits. Yeah, okay, we'll encourage him on.
You are not alone in that. I think what was funny about the Legends crew was that I think was it the first um, guy writer for Sunrise and also
Yes,
the
yes.
youngest writer for Sunrise. So we were both we brought advantages but also disadvantages. Like to the romance side of things, I obviously, I haven't been married for decades. So I didn't have all of
Mm.
that kind of context to draw on when approaching romance. So yeah, for me too, honestly, that was probably one of the biggest things that I will take is learning how to do that well and also from like a faith position. That has been a really good journey to go on with Susie, who's just like the master.
Well, I was gonna look back because you talked about how, we were all on the same page with things with this, but we all did bring our own unique perspectives. like, I think if you look at Lord of Winter, it is a much more, and I didn't go through thinking like, oh, I need to write this like a Braveheart movie or something like that. But reading through it, it's like, oh, I can see where without even trying, you can tell this was written by an author who grew up watching Gladiator and Braveheart and Lord of the Rings and love, like there is some grit to it as well as the love story that is there. And in the same way with you, like you brought a perspective that only you could have brought. It's one thing if somebody tried to turn this franchise into something that it wasn't, right? If they brought a story that was trying to be very, Game of Thrones, like bring in too much grit sort of thing, or if they wanted to be like, wouldn't it be cool if there were zombies or something like that? It's like, well, that doesn't work with this story. There's bringing something of your own that doesn't work because it's going completely against the grain. And then it's, when you've read the books like we had before we were writing in them, there's bringing something that is an addition to, and it augments and builds on very nicely with what's already there. I think that's the advantage of having that team, is that when everyone's on the same page, the things that everyone is going to bring that are different, those things will be additive and they will be congruent with what's already been established. And that's always been the hope with this, is that it wouldn't feel disconnected, but it would feel just, it would feel very organic, like picking up Lord of Winter, picking up Heir of Light or Lady of Shadows or any of the other books in the series. You could you feel like you're back in that world. You feel like you're back in Eretz. Hopefully for anybody who's reading the books, that's what it feels like.
Indeed. We hope so. But I agree. Yeah, the beautiful thing about a team like that is that you have those shared aspects that everyone can appreciate no matter what book they pick up, but also the team helps each individual voice to come out and shine and to bring that unique thing that they're bringing to the table, which I feel very thankful that that's what our team did. Very blessed. And we hope that you enjoy the books. I hope that all of this comes through in the books. Go and read them and let us know what you think. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being here and for sharing your thoughts. We hope that you are all encouraged, and we will see you on our next segment.